What if the two players at the center of the Indiana Fever's biggest storylines suddenly decided they had enough? Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham. Two names, one team. And now a viral headline is claiming they're ready to walk away from the Fever after an alleged sabotage involving head coach Stephanie White. But before this story goes any further, there's something important you need to know. I could not verify any authentic announcement from Caitlin Clark or Sophie Cunningham saying they are leaving Indiana, and I could not find credible evidence of a leaked recording proving that Stephanie White sabotaged either player. In fact, the verified evidence currently points in the opposite direction. Indiana's official site shows Clark, Cunningham, and White continuing to appear together in media sessions as recently as August 2026. And just days ago, the Fever's own reporting showed Clark and White together after games, while Cunningham has continued appearing alongside White and her teammates. So why is this "we are leaving" story exploding? Because there really has been serious drama surrounding Stephanie White. There really were Fever fans who booed her. There really was controversy surrounding Sophie Cunningham. And Caitlin Clark really did publicly defend her coach. In fact, Clark said the boos aimed at White made her feel a little sick, while the team rallied around its coach. White then delivered one of the most emotional speeches of the season, insisting that the Fever were united and telling the people trying to tear the team apart to essentially stay out of their way. So the real story isn't that Clark and Cunningham have quit. The real story is much more fascinating. Why does the internet keep trying to turn the Fever's internal disagreements into a full-blown player revolt? And what would actually happen if Clark or Cunningham ever did decide they wanted out? Because if those two players genuinely walked away from Indiana, it wouldn't just be a Fever story. It would send shockwaves through the entire WNBA. To understand the latest viral claim, we have to go back to the incident that put Stephanie White under enormous pressure. It involved Sophie Cunningham. During Indiana's game against the Chicago Sky, Cunningham was hit in the head and neck area by Dijonai Carrington. The foul was initially called before being upgraded to a flagrant 2, resulting in Carrington's ejection. That should have been a basketball story. Instead, it became something much bigger. Why? Because of what Stephanie White said afterward. White explained that she hadn't seen the incident clearly in real time and had not yet had an opportunity to watch the replay before speaking after the game. That explanation did not satisfy everyone. Some Fever fans believed White should have immediately defended Cunningham more aggressively. Others argued that White's previous relationship with Carrington made the situation more complicated. And suddenly, the coach was facing criticism from her own fan base. Then came the boos. When White was introduced before the next Fever game, sections of the crowd booed her. That moment immediately went viral. But then something happened that completely changed the narrative. Caitlin Clark defended her coach. Clark made it clear that the reaction from fans bothered her. She reportedly said that hearing White get booed made her feel a little sick. And she didn't stop there. Clark explained that the Fever wanted to win that game partly because they wanted to support their coach and each other. That is a very important detail. Because the viral storyline says, Caitlin is leaving because White betrayed her. The documented story says, Caitlin publicly supported White during one of the coach's most difficult moments. Those are two completely different narratives. And Sophie Cunningham wasn't walking away either. She publicly supported White and described the Fever locker room as tight. White herself repeatedly emphasized that the team remained united. The Washington Post reported that after the controversy, White was greeted with cheers rather than boos and said the players loved each other and had each other's backs. So how did a story about team unity become a story about two stars supposedly quitting? That's where social media enters the picture. The word sabotage changes everything. If a coach simply makes a questionable decision, that's sports. If a coach deliberately undermines one of her own players, that's a completely different accusation. And that's why the word is so powerful in a headline. It immediately creates questions. What did White supposedly do? Who was affected? Was there a secret recording? Did Clark discover something? Did Cunningham witness it? Did someone inside the organization leak evidence? And most importantly, why would a coach sabotage her own players? Those questions create an irresistible mystery. But there is currently no verified evidence answering them. And that's something viewers should understand before accepting the headline as fact. There is no authenticated recording I could verify showing White secretly sabotaging Clark or Cunningham. There is no confirmed statement from Clark saying, "We are leaving." There is no confirmed statement from Cunningham saying, "I'm done with the Fever." And the team's recent activity contradicts the idea of an immediate mass departure. The Fever's official media listings continue to show Clark, Cunningham, and White participating together in team activities and post-game media. That's not what a team preparing for two major stars to walk away looks like. But that doesn't mean the controversy is meaningless. Far from it. The controversy tells us something about the extraordinary pressure surrounding Indiana. Every interaction is being examined. Every coaching decision is being questioned. And because Clark is such a massive star, even a normal disagreement can become a national conversation. That's the environment Stephanie White is operating in. Imagine being a coach and knowing that millions of people are watching your every decision. You call a timeout. Someone thinks you should have waited. You substitute a player. Fans say you don't trust them. You defend an opponent. Fans accuse you of betrayal. You criticize your own player. Fans say you're trying to push them out. And if you defend the player, someone else says you're playing favorites. It's almost impossible to satisfy everyone. That's why the sabotage theory is so easy to create. The audience already believes there must be something happening behind the scenes. So when a mysterious headline appears, people immediately fill in the blanks. But the blanks aren't evidence. They are speculation. And that's the line we have to keep clear. There's another reason this headline works so well. Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham have developed a strong public connection inside Indiana. Cunningham has repeatedly defended Clark during controversies. Clark has publicly supported Cunningham and her teammates. And both have become central figures in the Fever's new identity. So when one is mentioned in a rumor, people naturally connect the other. But their roles are different. Clark is the franchise superstar. Cunningham is a veteran presence whose physical style and outspoken personality have made her one of the team's most recognizable supporting players. Together, they represent something important about the Fever. Personality. Indiana isn't just winning basketball games. It's becoming a cultural story. Clark brings massive attention. Cunningham brings a willingness to speak openly. Aaliyah Boston provides another major star. Kelsey Mitchell continues producing at an elite level. And Stephanie White is trying to manage all of it. That's a difficult job. But the results matter. The Fever have remained competitive. Recent reporting described Indiana as a legitimate title contender, with Clark and Mitchell among the league's standout performers, and the team possessing the WNBA's best offensive rating at that point. That doesn't look like a team collapsing from within. It looks like a team dealing with enormous external pressure while continuing to win. And that's perhaps the biggest problem with the Caitlin and Sophie are quitting narrative. The available evidence simply doesn't support it. In fact, the latest official Fever material continues to show all three figures together. On August 19, the Fever published media featuring Stephanie White, Aaliyah Boston, and Sophie Cunningham. On August 23, official Fever coverage featured Stephanie White, Caitlin Clark, and Aaliyah Boston after the game against New York. Those appearances don't prove that every relationship inside the locker room is perfect. No professional sports team works that way. Players disagree. Coaches disagree. People get frustrated. But they do make it much harder to support the claim that Clark and Cunningham have already quit because of a secret White sabotage scandal. If something dramatic changes, the story could obviously change. But as of now, that isn't what the evidence shows. Now let's imagine something that hasn't happened. Suppose Caitlin Clark genuinely decided she wanted out of Indiana. What would that mean? It would be enormous. Clark isn't simply a star player. She's one of the biggest attractions in women's basketball. The Fever's identity has been built around her. Their fan base has grown dramatically. Their games attract enormous attention. And the league itself benefits from the spotlight surrounding Clark. Losing her would fundamentally change Indiana. But there would be another problem. Where would she go? What team could realistically acquire her? What would Indiana receive in return? Would Clark's contract situation even make a move possible? Would the Fever want to trade their franchise player? Would another team have enough assets to make Indiana consider it? Those questions would dominate sports media. And if Sophie Cunningham wanted to leave at the same time, the situation would become even more complicated. But again, none of this is currently happening. It's a hypothetical. And that's important because viral sports content often turns hypothetical scenarios into predictions. A headline says, "Caitlin and Sophie are leaving." The audience assumes the decision has already been made. Then another video says, "The Fever are falling apart." Another says, "Stephanie White is losing the locker room." And eventually, a completely unverified storyline becomes accepted as reality. But the actual evidence paints a different picture. White has publicly defended her players. Clark has publicly defended White. Cunningham has publicly supported White. And the team has continued playing together. In fact, the Fever's own official media page continues to feature Clark and Cunningham alongside White in recent team content. That doesn't mean criticism should stop. White should absolutely be evaluated. Her rotations can be debated. Her tactical decisions can be analyzed. Her handling of controversies can be criticized. That's part of professional sports. But there's a huge difference between criticizing a coach and claiming two players have quit because of secret sabotage. One is normal sports analysis. The other requires evidence. And right now, that evidence isn't there. So now I want to hear from you. Do you believe Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham are actually unhappy with Stephanie White? Or do you think the internet has taken a real controversy and turned it into a much bigger story? Would you ever want to see Caitlin Clark leave Indiana? And if she did, would the Fever even be able to replace what she brings to the franchise? What about Sophie Cunningham? Do you think she should remain in Indiana, or would another team be a better fit? And most importantly, do you believe the sabotage story, or do you need to see an authenticated recording before believing it? Right now, there is no verified evidence that Clark and Cunningham have announced they are leaving the Fever, and no verified evidence of the alleged White sabotage tape. The available evidence instead shows the players continuing to publicly support their coach and work together. So tell us what you think. Is this the beginning of a real Fever breakup, or just another viral WNBA rumor? Subscribe for more Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, Stephanie White, Indiana Fever, and WNBA drama. Because if Caitlin Clark ever actually says, "We are leaving," you won't have to rely on a rumor. The entire basketball world will hear it.